ladies and gentlemen. Today is our first guest. I am joined, as always, by my brother, Ian Streets. But our first guest, I said to Streets before I introduced this man that for the second guest, it's going to be like the guy who had to date Jennifer Aniston after she left Brad Pitt. I'm going to feel very sorry for that person to top this. We are joined by trainer, cutman, hand rapologist, snooker and pool dominator, magician, fanny pack enthusiast, the legend, Russ Anber. Sir, how are you?
Now, how do you want me to follow up with an introduction like that? Like, I mean, now you set me up, you set the bar really high now. So
we just,
mate, I want one of your business cards with all that. Oh, that is gangster.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal that hand rapologist from you, though. I'm going to steal
You're welcome.
that.
Welcome. How are you? You good?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're good. We're hyped to have a guest. We're hyped just to have someone that cares about boxing and someone that's been 40 years in the game. I mean, the list of people that you've worked with is incredible, and that's just the list of like the names day to day. You know, I myself, after my second pair of nearly £500 sterling grants got punched through, defected 5.5 years ago to Team Rival. If I lean, that is a box of Rival gear. I've never looked back. Amazing gear.
We'll just do the shameless advertising.
You get shameless advertising. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I actually bought those for Ian as a thank you for being my corner man in my fight. Yeah, I mean, what better way to say thank you than with a beautiful pair of white and gold?
Well, you know what? I hope that you guys, and like you said, you bought them. And that's one of the things that has been the trademark of our company, especially as it comes to the pro fighters. You know, we're a small company. We try to help as many fighters as we can, but, you know, we certainly aren't Nike, and we certainly don't have a checkbook that we write and pay money to fighters to wear our gloves. And we're very proud of the fact that of all the guys you see wearing it, it's because they choose to wear it. And Absolutely. The way you bought the gloves, you could have bought it elsewhere, but you chose to buy ours. And to me, that speaks volumes for the company.
I mean,
absolutely. And like, obviously there's a person, sorry, I was just going to say, from personal perspective, those gloves literally saved my hands. I have a repeating problem with them. And I know there's a story of a person of much higher importance that's how you guys got together, but literally game changing. And it's all the small things you don't even realize, which, I mean, I'd love to pick your brain about later, how you come up with that stuff, but it's the things you don't really realize you need until you have them, like the angle on the laces and things like that. It's just like, thank you for creating the products, man. They're amazing.
I mean, I bought my coach a pair of RS1s. Like my coach is IBF European champ at 147. He's had a history of like hand surgeries and everything. He won't go near another pair of gloves now. Like, he kept just getting all of these problems, probably from punching me in the forehead a little bit harder than he should have done. Granted, right? Got him a pair of them, and he's never looked back. Like yeah.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that, you know, about the angled lace track and stuff. This is stuff that I invented many years ago and brought to the market 17 years ago. And since then, two hands isn't enough to count the number of companies that have copied that have, appropriated themselves of my intellectual property, of my inventions. You guys probably wouldn't even know us either, because you didn't know us 17 years ago when we started. Nobody did, you know, like, we were unknown, but that was mine. And now so many guys are copying it and stealing it. And I think the one thing that differentiates us from other boxing equipment companies is that in most cases, those companies are run by businessmen who are trying to infiltrate the boxing world.
Yeah.
And in our case, I'm a boxing person infiltrating the business world. And I think that's what sets our stuff apart from the rest.
It
Absolutely.
shows, and like you said, with the that people wear it because they want to. So some people may get the financial incentive to stray for a couple of fights, but they always come back. There's no one that may get a sponsorship deal, go for another one for some money. What they want is the quality, and they all end up coming back. And these as well, I'm going to do, sorry, I don't want you to have to do it. I'm going to shamelessly sell the pads, game changing again for the hands. The amount of protection you get is just unbelievable. So thank you again.
Well, Ian, the other thing you might want to check out also on the website, and I don't want to make this about this isn't supposed to be a rival infomercial.
Of course.
Yeah, we have the largest selection of punch mitts of any company in the world. Nobody has more different models and styles of punch mitts than us. And punch mitts have evolved really. Like they used to be just a flat pad, that people wore. And
I remember.
But they were flat, which was a good idea because after you hit them and break them in, they took a shape. Well, little by little, that into what, different designs and looks and performance and different foams that are being used. And because I'm a coach and because I've done pads before any of you guys were born, I understand that the importance of people liking different things. There were certain fighters you used certain mitts with, and we used to make our homemade mitts, and they were done differently to accommodate the fighters that we were working with. And so when I started this company, that was one of the things I wanted to do, and I've succeeded in. We have the largest selection of all different types of mitts that whatever discerning taste you would have in a punch mitt, we have to have it somewhere in our selection. It has to be.
I'm going to hide that from the wife because I'm going to collect them all like Pokemon.
I tell you what are probably the biggest innovation because everyone uses paddles now, but the power paddles are no joke whatsoever. They've got enough oomph for a pad. They've got enough flexibility for a paddle. You're taking no shock. Bravo.
And did you notice the rounded bump in the back of the pad?
Yep.
Do you know what that's for?
I assumed it was for flipping for body shots or hitting people.
Well, if you want to subject your body to that, but it was so you can hit your opponent back, so your fighter back, so you can do block and parry exercises with it, where you can flip the pad at them, they can block it, you can throw, they can catch. So we did it so that you didn't just necessarily have to use your hands. You could do it, or you could turn one you could flip it out, and then they could counter to this one. So it was done for that reason. Yeah.
What did you start with? Did you start with gloves or coach equipment?
When we started the company, the most important thing that I wanted to do was introduce a high-end line. Like we weren't going to start with crappy stuff and build our way up. I was in the business. I needed to take my equipment, bring it into my gym for my fighters. So we started with a headgear, the RS1s, which have virtually remained unchanged since their inception, the RB1 bag glove with that unique Velcro attachment that allows you to squeeze it real tight around your wrist, which is as close as it's tight as you can get without actually using a lace. We did that. We did a cup. We did a traditional flat punch mitt, but was of great quality and lasted. And when you finally broke it in, boy, it took on a really beautiful shape and came out nice. So we started out with that basic line of goods. And when we made our reputation that Rival was a quality brand and not just an entry-level brand glove, that's when we started expanding our line and expanding our price points and making them available to everybody in a different range of quality and cost.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
How did you, I know this is going to be like the cookie cutter question, but I have to. How did you get into boxing? Like, what was your start?
Now
What
you
was
told
the?
Julia we only have an hour
I
we only
know.
have an hour
I
to do
know.
this. So
I mean, just
I
throwing
don't,
it
I don't
out
want to
there.
be this kid on the
We
front
don't
being
only
like,
have an
Ali
hour.
Fraser, Ali
Yeah,
Fraser.
yeah, yeah. We don't only have an hour. We can go as long as you want.
well, you're only paying me for the hour, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm just I mean, I'll try to give you the abridged version, you know, because I don't want you to not attend the film premiere when it happens if you know what's going to go on. So,
Who's playing you?
yeah.
Denzel?
My introduction to boxing was early, and it was with two things. My father and the announcement of the first Ali Fraser fight.
Okay.
When I was 10 years old. So that people today just really don't have I mean, they know the fight, you know, but they don't realize, and this is only me being 10 remembering this, okay? They have no idea of the social implication that this fight had and how it stretched way beyond the sports pages. This was socio-political. This went beyond just a boxing match. This was an event for the ages. And if you look at boxing history and you count the 5 most important, significant, politically important fights in boxing history, this is one of them. So it started with that, and all our friends in the neighborhood, you know, when we're talking about sports or whatever, is talking about Ali and Fraser.
Yep.
So of course, you know, I try to broach the subject with my father and tell him, oh, Ali and Fraser are going to be boxing, you know, or can we see it or whatever. And my father would, you know, shoo me off and saying, you know, I'd ask him, who did he think was going to win? And he'd say, it doesn't matter. Joe Louis would have beat both of them on the same night, you know? So for my father, Joe Louis was king, right? Like that was his guy, right? Was Joe Louis. And he would tell me stories about how they used to listen to his fights on the radio. So that was my first kind of contact with boxing when I realized boxing existed. And truth be told, I didn't even know there was weight classes in boxing at that point, because I remember telling my friends, oh, I bet you whoever's the winner, I bet you Donato Paduano would beat him, you know, and Donato Paduano was a welterweight from Montreal, local welterweight that you used to see his picture in the paper. So he had such a cool name that I remembered that. I didn't know there were weight classes, right? So as a result of that, I go ahead, fast forward to 1976 and the Olympic Games in Montreal. And, you know, it was played on television. You saw the emergence of the American team with, you know, Leo Randolph and Howard Davis Jr., Ray Leonard, the Spinks brothers, Big John Tate. You got to see the Cubans, you know, like this was something really special to see, you know, this was, and so you were glued to your set watching it. That was when really I first fell in love with boxing. Later that year, the movie Rocky came out, and you know, that sealed the deal for me. Like Russ, I was hooked. And,
which is your favorite Rocky? I need to know this.
The first one, without a doubt.
Really?
It's not even close.
Okay.
It's not even close.
I respect that. That's what I would like to call an analog answer. Now, for me, Rocky 3, indestructible. Even Eye of the Tiger comes from Rocky 3, right? It's got everything.
Yeah, but you know, Rocky 1, and again, think back to 1976. Rocky 1 really was boxing. Like that was their gyms. That's how you dressed when you went and trained. That's how the locker rooms were. Like this was boxing. And years later, Otis Grant and I would fight at the Blue Horizon. Otis fought at the Blue Horizon in Philadelphia. So, you know, like to us, it was real. Like this is what it was. This was boxing. They didn't base it on any characters. It was, you know, you didn't have the Don King type promoter. You know, you had a guy who was a promoter. You didn't have the walkout music. You didn't have all the crazy fanfare
the theatrics.
that you have now. That's right. You know, which kind of take your attention away from the product on the field. But
no face
you know,
off.
that's for another story. But Rocky One was almost the realest of all, in my opinion. I mean, slightly exaggerated in the beating he took, but there was a lot to be said about going the distance.
Perfect. I wanted to ask you. Obviously, it's very rare to have someone that you can ask I mean, for me, like, Usyk is either a vampire or a vampire hunter. He is a phenomenal talent. The only way that anyone can be that talented and move like he does is if you are supernatural. The same with Loma. How often do two trainers from London, who I personally train, majority financiers, get the opportunity to ask questions about two of the finest to ever do it from a man who is able to articulate it from, that perception, that side of the coin. I've heard you say before that, you and Usyk are like boys, and you and Loma are boys, but it would be rude for us to not have that little thought experiment just for me to whip it out. Usyk AJ, Usyk Fury, Usyk Wyatt, and then we can go from there. Who do you...
Look, in a nutshell, I'll tell you this. I truly believe in the bottom of my heart that Usyk will become heavyweight champion of the world.
I think so too.
Against who? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think each fighter represents a certain problem.
Yeah.
AJ is a talented guy. You know, like, people kind of like really came down hard on him after the Ruiz fight, the first one, which I thought was grossly unfair. I remember being in the dressing room. I was with Callum Smith that night. Yep. And Callum Smith knocked out Hassan Indam. And when we went back in the dressing room, we sat down, because it's a lot better to watch it on TV instead of the back of the audience, unless you're ringside. When you're a corner man, as you well know, when you're sitting in the corner, every other seat sucks in the house, right? So might as well just watch it on TV. And I remember telling Beefy, I said, this guy is more, I said, I think AJ's going to win. I said, but this guy is more dangerous than his original opponent, which was Big Baby Miller.
Yeah.
And I think it was just shortly after that he got shook. He got hit on the temple and kind of got shook early in the fight. And but I think people came down a little hard on Joshua. I think he carried enormous weight and pressure on his shoulders going into that fight. But he's an agile, big, talented man, and he carries one of the same qualities that Usyk carries. He's a man of class. He's somebody you can put out there with the people. Mm-hmm. I got all the respect in the world for him, and by no means I work in Usyk's corner, obviously, but that's always going to be a dangerous fight for Usyk. I'd like to think that, for Usyk and for Joshua, I think it's a dangerous fight for both guys, and certainly not an easy fight either way. I think people who say, the size doesn't matter the size matters with Usyk, I don't think they realize just how big Usyk is. Yeah. He's a big guy, okay? He's as big as Ali. He's a big man. Is he Tyson Fury? No, he's not. He's not as big as Tyson. And the thing I think that makes it a little more problematic with Tyson is that if Tyson was his size, but fought like a bruiser, fought like somebody who wants to crush you, I'd have liked our chances so much more,
Yeah.
But the fact that old feather duster, like he calls himself, is so gifted and so talented and so agile and mobile. Yeah. He falls into the category of, to me, what has always been so special for me in an athlete, in any sport, when I see either a very small athlete competing with giants. So in my case, in Canada, watching a lot of hockey, when you get a small hockey player and he's a superstar among those big guys, I just think that's so phenomenal that despite his size is better than everybody. Yeah. Or the opposite, when you see a big man, that you think is an oaf, and he moves like a lightweight. Yo, that blows me away as well. You know,
The grace.
And, what's that?
The grace that the big man had.
And
Is that why you like snooker?
I was just about to use that example that, you know, in the pool world, there's a guy, he was a world champion named Alex Pagulayan.
Okay.
He's diminutive. He's like 5 foot. And when he breaks the balls, they explode. Boom. Like he's one of the best players in the world. And then when you see a guy like a Stephen Lee or Sean Murphy, so big, and they hit the ball with the touch of silk, you know, like, wow, like that just freaks me out. Like I like that in any sport. So, and Tyson Fury has that. So, you know, it's certainly not going to be easy, but I really think that in terms of, forget who the opponent is, because I got a ton of respect for those guys. They're great fighters. Forget who the opponent is, but I do think that Alexander Usyk has all the skills, mindset, talent, power, size to be heavyweight champion of the world. I mean, if it happens, we'll see.
I mean, Loma's the same, and Usyk, they do very similar things where they seem to boil everyone that they fight, right? That they start and they just keep turning the temperature up and up and up and up, and it seems like they don't have an off. We've not seen it with either one of them yet, where it seems like they're going at full speed yet. There seems to be a definitive like cap where someone just reaches their point, but they're operating
making people quit on the stool, like
exactly.
World champions, like elite level athletes that are not used to being on the other end of that coin. They're used to dominating the fights, and then come up against this person, they can't. He's like a shadow. You can't touch him.
Rigo, Waters, you know,
right?
That like the Waters one.
Usyk with Lomachenko. I like to compare him. Again, this is going to be something that you guys don't remember yourselves, but you may know of. Do you remember the great racehorse Secretariat?
Yeah, I know of it. Know of it. Okay. Yeah.
No.
Well, Secretariat to me was what Loma and Usyk are. Like they have it's like their heart just is. It's like they're running a V8 engine when everybody else is running on 4 cylinders.
Yeah.
That's the way it seems to me, and that's what Secretariat was like. Like he was just able to go and go and go, and often his time on the second half of the race was better than on the first half, like he was quicker at the end than he was at the beginning. So I think Usyk and Loma are athletes of that type, and I think in every sport you have guys who have that natural ability, the way Mayweather has his defensive stuff down pat, the way Roy Jones had his speed and power so explosive. This is God sent. This is something that's the special gift that each of the athletes are in possession of. And I think with Usyk and Lomachenko, and when you said they're both similar, imagine, they're both similar, but Usyk weighs 200 plus pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a heavyweight. You would expect it from a featherweight and a lightweight.
Yeah.
But this guy thinks he's a middleweight. This nut, he's a middleweight and fights that way. So that's special. And I think that's another reason why heavyweight boxing was different back in the day. When you think back of Larry Holmes and Kenny Norton, the war that they went through, like they went at it. They thought they were middleweights. That's the way they fought. We don't often see that same pace, now with the bigger guys. So, but Usyk's going to be able to bring that.
The one saving grace of this really weird time, like the COVID era, is that now boxing's back, especially in the UK. It seems like the zero has lost most of its power, right? With the exception of, I don't know who, Bud, like Crawford. We're now in the post-COVID era. Eddie Hearn and those guys, they're putting people together. Even Frank Warren's putting people together that you didn't really expect. We saw it last weekend with Martinez and Akon. Like, why would you have two prospects at that earlier stage of their career fighting each other? Like, it seems to be in a really good spot now where it seems to be going back because we do, so we do episodics, like, for example, this would be the first guest one. we do like a sweep up of the events of the week. But what our main focus is that we spend hours and hours and hours researching and doing a particular fighter's history. And we did like Customato yesterday. It seems to be going back to that old school, doesn't matter, the 70s and the 80s, the Four Horsemen era, where it seems like the fights have to happen with the exception of the money of, DAZN and those guys that intervene and say, we have to, but they're doing it on a good way with like Canelo's example. They're not allowing him to fight the Turkish dude. I can't even say his name.
Oh yeah.
Alderin.
Yeah,
Alderin.
Yeah.
Because they want what they quote unquote to be a premier level fighter, which is great, right? It's before, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, they would have let Canelo probably just destroy this poor dude for 35 mil like nothing happened. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I've got like ADHD. Sorry, Russ.
But speaking of the UK, I got to apologize. I know you're only internet in London, but I need to. The last time in London with the Rivas fight and Dillian White, you're a man. You've been in this game for 40 plus years. There's like you struggle to find someone more experienced. Is there ever been a case where that's happened, where like you can go into a fight with gloves that aren't signed off? And I mean, I'd love to hear it firsthand, but from my understanding, the hands are wrapped, your representatives left, come back and the hands are then in the gloves, and you just have to take it at face value that those gloves, they're completely different gloves for a start. Is that how it unfolded?
It's almost, listening to you tell it's almost unbelievable that if somebody told me that story would have happened, after all the experience I've had with the British Boxing Board of Control and all the times that I've been in the UK, primarily in Manchester. So I guess it's a different group of people from the board that are there. But I remember telling Egis Klimas, who's Lomachenko and Usyk's manager, among others, I said, listen, Egis, if we get the chance to go to the UK, don't worry, we're good. They're fair. Everything is fine. We're cool. When we got the chance for the Rivas Dillian White fight, none of us were concerned. I've been boxing in the UK. My fighter, Otis Grant, won the world middleweight title against Rhodes in Sheffield, and so, I mean, I had no issues whatsoever about going to the UK. So if you'd have told me that something like this could have happened, I would have said there's absolutely no way that that's going to go down under the guise of the British Boxing Board of Control, or for that matter, Matchroom, who are going to be fair in their approach to this. And what happened was just phenomenal, and I really couldn't believe that they did that. And I guess to brief everybody on what had happened, and I'm on record as having done interviews. I think I did an interview on IFL, if I'm not mistaken, talking about this. And we had the weigh-in and the rules meeting on the day before the fight, as is the regular tradition, right? So the gloves are presented on the table. They saw our gloves, we saw their gloves, we sign off on them. All is good. Shook hands. Everybody goes their own way. See you tomorrow. Good luck at the fight. We go to the fight, and when our guy came back from the dressing room after watching them wrap, which they had a guy watching us wrap, and we have
of course.
Came back and said they're not wearing the gloves that they selected at the rules meeting. What are you talking about?
What did they switch
No, they're not wearing those gloves. So I'm thinking that's impossible.
Fun.
Our guy must be making a mistake, because there's no way that the inspector from the British Boxing Board of Control or the inspector of the WBC, the supervisor who's doing the fight, is going to let that happen. They were there when we signed off. They've got the gloves. There's just no way. Like, it's literally impossible that could go wrong. That's the one thing that can't go wrong. Well, sure enough, that's what they did. They used the excuse that the gloves that were supposedly selected for Dillian were used by the number 2 fight of the night in a preliminary fight, which is impossible because those gloves are with the supervisor and they're not supposed to be for anybody else. So then they called us into the hall and said, look, these are the gloves he's using. So they hand us a bag of gloves. And I said, these are the gloves he's using? Well, no, he says, this is the same kind of the gloves he's using. The one he's using, he's already got on his hands. I said, well, I don't want to see the one. I don't want to see these. I want to see the one he's got on his hands. Oh, no, you can't see that. Why not? Well, because he's already got them and we got to go. So that was the thing. So it was, they're lucky it wasn't my call because I was the, corner man and cut man for Rivas and hand wrapper. Mark Ramsey is his trainer. That call was his. But me, and I've already told Mark, that wasn't going to happen. Like, we weren't leaving the dressing room. But Mark was confident in the fight and figured that this wasn't, that Rivas was going to get the job done, which he almost did. And, it was the point was going to be moot. But, it wasn't. And, we got the result of it afterwards. You find out about the positive drug test that that was not disclosed to us. The sample B, the B sample, which magically disappeared and no one knows anything about it. And then the fact that they used gloves that they weren't supposed to use. And if you watch the fight, you will see a marked difference in size of the gloves he's wearing as to the gloves we're wearing. And, that's,
and if you didn't spot it, they wouldn't have told you, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no, of course not. No, that's what makes it even worse. Because let's say, for whatever reason, Dillian said, no, I don't like the glove. Mark Tibbs chose the gloves in the selection. This one doesn't fit quite well. We want to switch. Then the proper thing would have been to come to our camp, say, look, you got to come over. We're switching gloves. You need to look at the gloves to make sure. If we didn't catch it ourselves, they weren't telling us. So when you're not telling me, that means you're cheating. There's no other way you can describe it, that you didn't tell us. So we found out, we had to discover it on our own. You didn't tell us. You again withheld that information as well. So to me, that's just wrong, and in a sport as dangerous as boxing, and when you're dealing with gloves and hand wraps, to me, that's even more dangerous than the drug testing, because this is intent. You know what I mean? This is what's going to hit you. And, let
alone the two together, because they'd already been the hearing, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So was there any explanation as to how that series of events happened from the border control? Or was it just basically, don't worry about it?
You see, the problem with that was the main people from the British Boxing Board of Control, the really good guys who take care of it, and I'm thinking of Rob Smith and others, who run it, they would never have let that happen. That wouldn't have gone down because they would have said, no, it has to be for both. You've got to see both. Both guys have to see it. There's no one or the other. Would have been fair. But it wasn't. It was people that I had never seen before from the British Boxing Board of Control. I guess it was their London crew, if you will. Right. And I didn't know any of these guys there. And Matchroom certainly didn't help the case either. In saying, look, okay, they got to see the gloves. That's it. That's all it had to be. Like, if there's nothing wrong, these are the gloves. What's the problem? No big deal. But they didn't. So why? Now, that's the stuff that kind of bothers me.
That's a bit scandalous.
I think it's just unfair.
Yeah, it is very unfair. And, it's hard enough having to travel to, a foreign country on a foreign card. And, did it feel like they were feeding Rivas to Dillian and basically loading the deck as much as possible just to...
Well, I think, I think all promoters try to gain an edge for their fighter. And that's fine. When you're gaining an edge, that's fine. You put them in the hotel that's further away from the venue. Yeah. You put the local guy in the venue. All these kind of things. I understand that happens in boxing. You're the visitor. There is a certain advantage, like in any team sport, when you have home field advantage. There is a little bit of an advantage. Sure. It's not cheating though.
No.
It's not blatant cheating. You're not trying to do bad things in a dangerous sport. And I think that. Coming to the glove selection meeting, choosing the gloves you wanted for the fight, then not wearing them, not telling us about them, not letting us see them, not letting us see them after the fight, not letting the WBC supervisor take the gloves after the fight. None of that, not ungloving.
How is that allowed to... Is this like marked British boxing for you, or is this something that you would just, it's just a one-off, a very shady one-off with a lot of questions involved that are never going to be answered, or is it something where you just like, I can't trust this anymore, I can't risk this?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it only has to happen once for you to have
Yeah,
that kind of feeling, right?
absolutely.
It only has to
There's
happen
been enough
once.
tragedies
And
recently.
the thing is, like I said, I've never been exposed to any of that, whether I was on the visiting team or I was working
Yeah.
with a British fighter. I've never really experienced anything untoward in the way that things have been conducted with the British Boxing Board of Control. No issues at all. Everything that was fair for both fighters, rules meeting held, this is what's happening, was the same for everybody. So I think this is why when this happened, especially with not the regular people that are usually there, with the learning later about the drug test, the positive drug test,
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff, I think with all those things that piled one on top of each other, made this just a bad scene all the way around. And I realized something was a little bit even more, amiss with what happened, because the following day when we were heading to the airport, it's now closed down, but I was providing articles on a regular basis for a magazine called Boxing Monthly.
Yeah.
And so they had asked me, would I on the way to the airport, would I talk to them so they can do the story about, fresh off the press, what happened in the Rivas White fight. So up until that moment, we had not mentioned any of this to anybody. Like we didn't mention, we put a protest with the WBC, but publicly, nothing. We didn't speak about it. It wasn't talked about at the press conference. We didn't mention it to any journalists back in Canada. So when I had this opportunity to talk to Boxing Monthly, I said, I've got something special for you guys. And I told them the story. And,
Right.
oh, wow, whoa. Took it all down and everything was great. And like, wow, this is, I said, no one knows about this. You guys are getting it hot off the press. You're the first to have it. You've got the scoop. Great, Russ. I'm going to write it up and I'll email you the copy. Mm-hmm. By the time you get home, you'll have the article. Let me know if it's okay, and we'll do it. So I get back home, read it. Yeah, that's it. That's what I said. Very good. Go ahead. Send it off. Next day, I wake up to an email that said, yeah, there was a little bit of a problem. Boxing Monthly, they find it a little bit slanderous, to maybe say things like that.
Listen, you're surely allowed.
How could it be slanderous if I'm the one saying it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's also too. Wasn't it like you brought a bag in of extra gloves, and just because the promoter didn't carry the bag, automatically that's a problem. But you just have to be okay with a completely separate pair of gloves being you. It's like, how does that make sense?
How did you hear about that? How did you know about that?
Yeah, I saw it, and I was just like, this is insanity afterwards, because I wanted to know what the hell was going on.
We brought extra gloves just in case people, they needed to have extra gloves, and they said, carry the bag in. And they said, oh, no, those have to be supplied by the promoter. I said, the promoter's standing right there. Yeah. Like, what's the difference? Who brought the bag through the door? Who cares? They're not touched. They're in sealed bags. They're in sealed plastic. What's a problem? And you're telling me that, and then tell me that he can switch gloves without us seeing them. So that, the drugs, the article afterwards, all these things just kept compiling. And I'm saying, there's just no way. Like, there's just, this is just a conspiracy all the way through, that they're not going to do anything about this. So, yeah. Russ, that's why I had no love lost for Povetkin doing what he did to Dillian White. That was karma coming back.
Did IFL run the interview? Because you said you spoke to them about it. They did.
Yeah, it should still be up on YouTube somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
They ran it when I was in. It was in I believe July, August of last year, when I was in Belfast for Mick Conlan's fight. That's when they did the interview. So you should be able to find that there. We did it at the hotel in Belfast, and Yeah.
It's just a little bit soft of Boxing Monthly to bail on it, but IFL will allow it on YouTube because, you know, IFL and Coogan and Eddie Hearn have been friends for a long time. They're, you know, the two have been linked forever. So weird. I do have a
Well,
question.
in fairness to Eddie, during this controversy was going on, Eddie wasn't there. So
Yeah.
Eddie at a few times had said, well, you know, Russ Amber's not wrong in what he's asking for. Russ Amber's not wrong in what he was saying. So it's the first time I had heard Eddie kind of like, you know, without going too much out on a limb against this guy, you know, was in agreement that, you know, we weren't wrong in saying that the gloves should have been, you know, we should have had a look at the gloves, and but he wasn't there. So
Okay. I have a couple of questions for you. Number one, out of 10, how good a friend would you say you are with Roy Jones Jr.?
10 being the best,
10 being best.
11.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Who wins on the pool table more, you or him? Because I can't imagine that he takes losing that well.
He does not take losing that well at all. And if we were to count all the times that we've played, you know, I'm up by far. But on the last visit that he had to Montreal a couple of years ago, we went and played, and he beat me 5-4. He's refused to play me since. He has that one win. He has that one win, a short race. 5-4, he beat me, and
retired the champ.
Correct. But I will tell you this: Roy, and Beefy are by far the two best players I've played from the boxing world. Now, Manny Pacquiao might be the best player from the boxing world because he really plays pool seriously. But I haven't played him. But of the people I've played, I would say Beefy, maybe not necessarily in this order, but Beefy, Roy, and Abel Sanchez are the three best players I've played.
Abel as well. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Abel's a good player.
Are you going to be cornering Roy in the exhibition? Are you got any part of it?
It's the plan. Plan.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excited?
It's a plan.
Or are you?
I am. I'm worried, you know, because these two guys are, you know, they can say what they want about how it's going to be an exhibition. Yeah. I played pool with Roy, okay?
Yeah.
Roy thinks it's a bloody fight. So, you know, like, I know that Tyson's the same. So
it's stressful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's pretty much what we said. Completely down the line, like you want to see it because you're a fan, but you also don't want to see it because you know exactly what they are, who they are, and at this time of their life,
I want them both to have the experience, but I don't want anyone to get hurt. You know, it's like having your best mates punch on. You're like, you want them to have had that again. They deserve the moment again, but I just don't want anyone getting hurt. Like,
Yeah, and I think that if at any time, I think if they start off even with the best of intentions, I think as it goes on, if one feels the other has, and we've all seen sparring sessions go this way. Okay, we're going to spar.
Yeah.
But one guy just feels the other guy threw one just a little bit too hard, and he throws one back.
Yeah.
And then it's a domino effect, right? And then we're in a real fight.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll hug at the end, but you know, I think the fact that I think they both know that they're both too competitive to just go in there and just tap each other and just go like this one. And no, I don't think that's happening.
I mean, I joked when we spoke about it when they announced that like if I truly believe that Roy probably would take you into the ring just because you mouthed him off wrong. Just that, like, I think he's just like just a fighter through and through. You know, if you beat him at pool, if you beat him at PlayStation, if you beat him at flipping coins, he wants revenge. I just don't see how you can have even someone in the later ages. It's just a I want to see it, but I don't want to see it. I'm scared but excited, and I just don't know.
That's why it's garnered, because of what you're feeling,
Yeah.
is why the fight has garnered the interest that it has, even with two guys that are in their 50s. So, it's like that movie Grudge Match,
Yeah.
it may not be, the best that they are,
Yeah.
but it's the best they got right now.
Yep. It will be the biggest pay-per-view definitely of the year. Like, there's nothing that's going to come near it, is there? Let's be honest. Like, they could charge
Yeah.
45 quid sterling here. I don't know what it'll be in the States, but they, yeah. Very, very quickly, and I've had this cleared and okayed by your very good UK head. We've got a giveaway at the minute for our podcast just to help it grow and blossom and flourish, where we have 2 pairs of RS1 Pro gloves that have been won when we figure out which review of our podcast has won. The next giveaway that we're going to do is a pair of the pound for pound edition blue, yellow, Epic Loma, Epic Ukrainian, the RFX Guerrero Pro sparring gloves. We're only going to give away 1 pair of those because Streets and I are not made of money and we refuse to take the gifts. We want to give it back. So, whilst we have the man himself on here, the best review that starts from September 1st, that will end on the 17th of October, maybe even putting him on the spot, maybe even I'll DM him and let him pick which one he likes best. That one will get the pair of gloves. You can't really get a better prize, right? You're talking about immense gloves, beautiful gloves. There it is. That's just our little announcement.
That's nice, and I know whoever those gloves have been really popular for us. They're the exact same glove that Loma has used for the majority of his career. He's been more than happy with them, and I think whoever gets them will feel just as happy. They're a special glove.
Okay. Really, really like low level questions that I need to ask. What's Deontay Wilder like? Because he seems to me like to be a complete G. Like, I think that I would be best friends with him and he would be best friends with me, whether he wanted to or not. Right? I know that you spent a lot of time with him. He seems very cool to me.
Okay. No comment.
Sure. Mr. Lemieux also seems...
Have fun with him.
Yeah. Sure. Mr. Lemieux, is he the king of Montreal, or would you say that's Jean Pascal or Lucien? Like, either way, like, you got some great fighters that come out of Quebec.
So I'm presuming you're within the last little while, this last little frame up of boxing over the last few years. I think the guy is Jean Pascal. I think Jean, in the last decade is the guy. Lucien Boutte was, a huge ticket seller. And by that, I mean, he could have fought the janitor of the Bell Center and they were going to sell it out. That's how popular he was with the people. Jean was a massive ticket seller as well, but Jean wanted to be involved in mega fights. Like, he wanted to be involved in big fights, whether it's Diakanu twice, Hopkins twice, Chad Dawson, Boutte. Like, he wanted to be involved in big fights. And when he was, the place was full. So for me, the guy that I would have to say has to be crowned king for everything that he's done, for his heart, his chin, the list of opponents that he has fought. If you take a look at the guys he has fought, it's a Hall of Fame resume. Add Kovalev to that list as well. And it wasn't always, he didn't always win, but he fought the best the division had to offer. So for me, Jean Pascal still has that crown of being.
And let's be fair, if the fight with Froch, if that's somewhere neutral, let alone home for Froch, I'm not sure which way that decision goes, That was...
You know what? I think Froch, early in the fight, they were neck and neck. I think Froch might have pulled it out down the stretch. He had a good jab. He proved what a great fighter he was. That fight kind of like, wow, this really put him on the stage. It was the British fight of the year. And ironically, after that fight, in which you have to say, like when you look at Froch's career fight, that might have been one of his toughest fights ever, like in terms of physical, what it took out of him.
He spoke about that he was in bits afterwards. Yeah, he's quite open about it.
And Jean was just, and we know how heavy-handed Froch is, and the shots that Jean took and withstood. No one realized that at the time. It was only later we realized just how strong and powerful Froch was.
Yeah.
And I think that says a lot. But ironically, at that fight, and 6 months after that fight, Jean becomes, I think, let me just do my math right. About 6-7 months, Jean fights a tune-up fight as a comeback fight, a couple of months after he fights Froch. And then 3 months after that, wins the light heavyweight championship of the world from a hereto considered, murderer in Adrian Diacanu, who was undefeated, who was crushing everybody. Jean moves up from super middle to light heavy to become light heavyweight champion of the world. And that's the one thing that always bothered me. When Jean won that fight, Lucien Boutte was the super middleweight champion of the world at the time. And to me, that should have been a crowning moment in Quebec boxing, in Montreal boxing, that the super middleweight champion of the world moves up to light heavyweight to go after a second world title and avenge the loss of his friend, Adrian Diacanu, and both of them at the peak of their career fighting each other, which sadly, we're never going to see again. Unfortunately, it's never going to happen that there's going to be two Canadians holding world titles at the same time in two weight classes close enough to each other that they could fight each other. It never happened before that two Montreal world champions would meet in a world title fight. Has never happened. And the odds are astronomical that it happens again. And I think we erased a very important part of history when Boutte did not fight Jean when he was champion of the world.
Okay. I've been told that you have a penchant for fanny packs. Is it the convenience that you enjoy so much, or is it the fashion statement? Because they are a statement.
You mentioned that earlier, but I don't know. I don't know why you had heard that. I don't have one. I don't use them. So
really?
Yeah, you said that earlier, and I didn't know what you meant by that.
Oh no!
Now you're talking about fanny pack, the thing that you wear around your waist.
I was told that you love them. No. Oh, we need to have words with our mutual friend. She's trying to put dissension in the ranks. She's going for your spot. She's going for CEO. That's what she's going for. She's trying to get into your mind and get you out.
Maybe. But when you mentioned that in the introduction, I said, "What does he mean by that?"
Yeah.
But, no,
I've got the text here. Confirmed.
When we're done, you better call her and
I'm gonna
and ask her. But
What is the future for Rival? Are you going to be bringing out? Is there anything down the line that you're like super hyped about without giving things away? Obviously, is there lines because the boots?
We have a few
Streets
things.
love
we have
the
a few
boots.
things in the pipeline. Yeah, we have a few things in the pipeline. Oh, nice. Our shoe line is continuing to evolve. We want to keep doing that. We've got some new pieces of gym equipment, new line that are coming out of that, some fitness stuff. So we've got some new things. Listen, the two most important things of our company, well, I should say three. The three most important things of our company, without a doubt, the number one thing is quality. Like for our high-end stuff, when you're buying the premier Rival stuff, you're getting the best money can buy. And when you're buying the low-end stuff, you're getting better than you would get in buying someone else's low-end stuff. So it's for what it's worth, you're getting a lot for your dollar, and it's worth it, and it's going to last. Quality is important to us. Innovation is important to us. That's most important, and evolution. So we're continuing to evolve. We continue to innovate, and we want to continue to bring quality to the name. So I think the fact that our company has been fortunate enough to build based on word of mouth and reputation, because we don't spend money on marketing. I don't have a big ad campaign. We don't flood, we don't buy ads everywhere.
Yeah.
We don't have that kind of money to do it. So we had to do it with a product, and the product, for all intent and purposes, kind of sold itself, and its reputation was good. And I think if I had to pick the proudest moments of my time with Rival, of what I felt, I think I have to relate it to Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
And that was when he fought Charles Martin for the title, when he first won the title. And we had gotten a call, 10 days earlier from Matchroom saying they needed a bunch of gloves for the AJ card, which sometimes on the undercard they needed. So I said, look, I don't have time to make you any custom made stuff, but we got some stuff in stock, put a few things together, just what we had, and shipped it off. And the night of the fight, I remember going through my Instagram feed, and I said, oh, wow, look at that. I said, Charles Martin is wearing Rival gloves. They put a picture up in his dressing room on the Matchroom page. Wow, that's cool. And then a couple of minutes later, I'm scrolling through, and the picture comes up in AJ's room, and he's wearing our gloves. Now, up until that point, I had never spoken to Anthony.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Didn't know him from a hole in the ground. I mean, I knew him just, he won. I called his fights at the Olympics and stuff, but me and him had never spoken, never met, doesn't know who I am, nothing. Yeah. And he chose to wear my gloves. They were on the table. He had been wearing another brand, wearing Grant's actually his whole career. I don't know what happened. Gloves came in. They either didn't fit properly or couldn't get his hand in or whatever. Put ours on and wore them. And that, to me, is the ultimate compliment. And same thing for, Loma, Usyk. Like I said, these guys wear it because they choose to. But having Anthony on the night of a world heavyweight championship fight, after never having worn our gloves before, he'd worn our sparring stuff, but never our fight gloves, and chose to wear them. I think that was an ultimate compliment. And I really thought that, we've arrived, like our stuff is good, that it's good enough for the heavyweight champion of the world.
I wonder if
and just
it was
today,
an
I
omen.
think, sorry.
Go on, because he wore Rivals again in Riyadh, didn't he, when he got the titles back?
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
yes,
I wonder if that was like an omen, like I got the title wearing Rivals, I'm going to get the titles back wearing Rival.
I don't know. I don't know what it was. Grant makes a great glove. I'm friends with Elvis Grant. I defend Elvis as well when I see other companies stealing his look and his design. The split palm, the split thumb. This is what he innovated. This is what he made. And people steal that. The metallic look, people steal that from him. He's the one who did that first. So Elvis and I are good friends, and we talk often. And like I said, I hate when people steal what he does. He makes a good glove. His glove is a little bit tighter fitting and smaller fitting than ours. So maybe that was an issue with AJ, because he's a monster, right? Obviously, he's got huge hands. So maybe that was an issue. But in terms of quality, Grant's gloves, he makes a great pair of gloves. He is one of the best in the business, and he's a fight guy, and I respect that.
Even today, I was just going to say, AJ had the launch of his Boss crossover thing, and on the gloves, they were Rival gloves.
Yeah,
that was kind of neat. Julia did that. She got approached either by AJ's team through Hugo Boss, or I'm not sure what exactly the connection came, but they came to us and said, could we do this? And we pulled it off in record time. We have never made so many gloves in such a short period of time. But you know what? I do that because it's important. I mean, I can't give AJ money. I can't give him a free Rival t-shirt and he's going to be happy, right? That's just, it's on a different level, right? He can buy my company with his pocket change.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He doesn't need the money.
No, he doesn't. So if I can do something that says thank you and I appreciate what you've done, then that's how I can do it. Because this I can do, and you can't get it done elsewhere. I'm your guy. I'm going to come through for you. So thank you for what you've done. And this is our token of appreciation for you believing in us.
Yeah. I mean, without this, like you said, becoming a Rival infomercial, I don't quite get where the whole like punchers, not punchers. I mean, like those Guerreros, Streets just got a pair of them. I've got a pair of 10s. They're cracking them. They are the bit like they're just my favorite gloves. I've got the little red pair behind me. That's what I use when I train now because they're just so sharp. They protect your hands. It's just everything about them is just so balanced. It's just absolute quality.
You
Anyway.
know, I've heard people, use that, coin that phrase, puncher's glove, and I mean, some promoter, some manager at some point thought that this made the difference in knocking guys out or not. I don't believe in it. I think it's the equivalent of putting a pillow, your bed pillow on the bumper of your car and hitting somebody at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
The pillow ain't going to do much.
No.
It ain't going to do much, right? So what I don't like, and I think where this so-called puncher's glove came from, is there were certain brands that were making horsehair gloves, which basically there was no padding in the glove. Like you could take your finger and press it on the glove and you'd go right to your knuckle almost instantly. And what that did, it didn't generate more knockouts, but it generated more bruising and bumps and swelling because you're basically fighting with your hand wraps and a piece of leather. And I think Mayweather made proof of that in the Maidana fight where he said, "Not wearing them. It's not happening."
I mean, those looked outrageous though, didn't they? They look like
someone been driving over them with a car. Yeah.
Russ, how do you feel about the bare knuckle surgence that's popped up now?
Before I get to that, I got to finish this story because this ties in very well to what happened with Maidana and Mayweather. Happened to us 6 months earlier, or maybe not 5 months earlier, when Jean fought Lucien Boutte. When we went to the glove selection, Boutte wearing Everlast, I put the gloves on and again, there's nothing in there. And I protested to the WBC supervisor. The commissioner overruled it saying I was in conflict of interest because I have rival gloves and I work with Jean Pascal. So Everlast was a recognized brand. So the gloves he's going to wear them. I said, no problem, but I want to be on record that if something happens, that I objected to the use of these gloves. The fight happened, Jean won, nothing as a result of the gloves came about, so it kind of went by the wayside and no big deal, we won the fight. Fast forward 5 months ahead, I'm in the dressing room when this incident is going down with Maidana in the rules meeting where the commission is. I'm there. I'm right beside them. And they come in and Elvis was there and Mayweather said, I'm not wearing those. He didn't even look at them. He said, he's not wearing those. There's nothing in them, and right away, he objected to the gloves and I see all this going on. The controversy starts happening. Nevada State Athletic Commission clears the room, because now they have a problem on their hands. I'm leaving the MGM area where it was, and I saw Bob Yalen, who was the WBC supervisor at our fight, and I saw him from 50 feet away. And I said, Bob, he puts his hands up, he says, I know, right? So we raised the same concern 5 months earlier, but we're not Mayweather, it didn't matter, but Mayweather raised it, and it was a concern. So, that's my puncher's glove story.
How do you feel about the no glove that just seems to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right?
I have a problem with it. I just, I know that we go back to saying that, people have died in boxing and they have suffered brain injuries with, wearing gloves, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's true. But nobody's forced to go into a ring. I mean, they do this of their own choice, and you're going out there doing. I have a problem, the fact that you do this in a bare knuckle contest in which you almost can't hit hard enough to knock somebody out.
Yeah,
because
everything's
you will
subconcussive.
hurt your hand.
Yeah.
You know, and you're busting him up and splitting lips and busting eyes up.
Yeah.
To me, that's not what the sport should be about. You know, if you're a real good fist fighter, let's eliminate that as much as we can and see who the best fist fighter is. And that's what boxing is. If when you do it and now they're letting you do bare knuckle, but you're allowed to tape your hand. You know, you can tape it. I mean, it seems like we're just progressing from that. So that's why we have boxing as it is, and that's why we put on a little glove for you. It's not big, but it prevents you from, you know, getting your eye poked out and getting your lips split open and your ear torn. Like it. I mean, of course, there's still damage, yes, but you know what you're doing. And when you block punches, you know, you can actually catch a punch on your hand instead of meeting this. Like when that happens, which then hurts you, hurts the guy, you're just going through an exercise of pain, and the people are watching you saying, all right, way to go, he's bleeding. I got a problem with that. I don't like it. You know, I'm not a huge MMA fan, you know, all respect with what they do. You know, I understand that you can do all this stuff, but when you allow everything in a sport, technically it's not because you're good at everything. It's because you're not prohibited from doing anything. You can do what you want. So, but I understand the ground game that they have. I understand the striking, but I'm not a huge fan. I certainly don't go out of my way to watch. It's not my thing. I don't like to see somebody having their arm bent back where they can break, or their knee, or getting choked. Like, I understand that there's a skill to that. I get it, but it's just not my thing. You know, like in boxing, you're in front of the guy and you're there, and you have a chance to when you can no longer defend yourself, they stop it. So unless you get one punch knockout, which happens, but you were defending, you were in a position to defend yourself when that one punch came. So I'm just a boxing purist, I guess. I'm not, just because I like boxing doesn't mean I like all combat sports and all types of fighting. I don't.
I mean, you know, like for me, like boxing has always been number one. MMA is what I like to describe as the side piece, and then there's the rest, which is just, you know, stuff you go down a YouTube rabbit hole with. For me, like Streets is basically a ninja, is what he is. He's
no.
Why not?
Just like, you know,
I was going to say, it's fine. You know, like I have no problem with the people who like it. What I get upset is I get attacked sometimes on Twitter, you know, as being this crazy lunatic because I don't like it. Wait a minute. Why?
Exactly.
That's just now, though, isn't it? Everyone has to like what everyone else does, and if you say something, you're offending someone, or everything's not PC and PC at the same time. Oh, it's exhausting.
If you don't like boxing and you like MMA, okay, no one's forcing you at the fight. It's like our sport is not dependent on you showing up.
No.
Why are you worried if I like it or not?
Yeah.
You know? So,
100.
What are you gonna do? Social media age.
Can I just ask a bit of rapid fire? Hardest puncher, was it Adonis that you've felt?
Yeah, I'd have to say although like I'm hinging now. I'm hinging now between him and Beterbiev, but
yeah, of course, shit.
Yeah, but for the time, like let's say prior to Beterbiev, in my 40 years in the game, pound for pound, single, one shot, Adonis was the hardest puncher I've seen. And I say that I trained him for 2.5 years as an amateur when he wasn't even Quebec champion until he became #1 in North America. So like I had a great influence on his career and what he became. And I saw instances in sparring and in fights where he would hit a guy with like, sometimes he looked even awkward and he'd go like this, you know, and just kind of hit you. And there would be a half a second of freeze on the fighter that just got hit, where the brain had to recalibrate what the hell just happened before they dropped?
And that's in
I'm not lying
16s
to
with
you guys.
headgear.
I'm telling you the truth. I've seen him do it. Body shots, head shots. He hits you. It doesn't look like it's hard, but it's like getting hit with a lead ball, and your body recalibrates. What was that force that just hit me with? And then it resets it, and you bang, down you go. So yeah, I'd have to say Adonis was singly the hardest puncher I've worked with in my 40 years. Yeah.
And just to put that
Sorry
in
if that
perspective,
wasn't rapid fire enough.
No.
no.
Sorry,
I meant on my end.
Yeah.
take
He's
your
probably
time
got another
with me.
35 questions. He's going to be asking about the finger
Don't
lengths
give me
of
the right
Loma
too much.
soon.
I'll be like, Russ,
Yeah.
what do you think about this?
Okay.
Also, what I was going to ask is the grants with Angel Espinosa, like they were. Is it true they're the only North Americans to go the distance with him? Is that right?
Up until he suffered a loss where he was a little bit past his prime, yes. Up until the Espinosa prime, they were the only two. And Howard was in 83 and Otis was in 87. One at 139 and the other at 165. Espinosa, to me, I think is one of the greatest fighters, pound for pound, that ever lived. And we never really got to see the true greatness of what he was like in the pro ranks, what he would have become. But this guy was, would you guys like to hear a very rare and secretive
Yes.
story? Okay, so the Cuban team is in Spain, I believe, in preparation for I'm going to say it would have to be the 92 Olympics. So this is a little bit past Espinosa's prime, but they're in training camp in Spain, and Espinosa is sparring with Felix Savant. Okay, great heavyweight, right? The great Felix Savant. And Savant, in typical fashion, he boom, and so at one point, Espinosa steps away from Savant and turns to Alcid Segarra, the head coach, and he says to him in Spanish, he says, "Hey, tell your boy to take it easier. I'm going to crack him." Because Savant was Segarra's guy, like that was, he loved Savant, right? So he says, "You tell your guy to take it easier. I'm going to crack him." And Segarra said, work, don't stop talking, work. Okay, Savant came, boom, bang, down goes Savant, right there.
No way.
Yeah. That's a fact. So, that's a fact.
Powerful.
So, yeah, he's...
he sparked Meldrick Taylor in the first, didn't he?
Yeah.
And you know what? Howard told Meldrick before the fight, he said, "Meldrick, be careful of this guy. This guy can crack." When Howard came back to the corner at the end of the first round, he spit out his back tooth. Howard still has a hole where he lost his tooth from he spit out his tooth. And he told Meldrick, he said, "Be careful, Meldrick." And Meldrick said to him, "No, man, I'm going to give him this. I'm going to give him this." He gave him that one round. It was done. Yeah. Espinosa is always my favorite. I got to be friends with him afterwards. And we had met on numerous occasions throughout his career. I even have upstairs, his uniform from the Pan American Games, his top and his shorts. Yeah. And I think I got his robe. Yeah.
Oh. Do you have like an absolute archive of ridiculous memorabilia?
Yeah, but it's a mess. It's all over the place. One day my daughter will put it together and have a museum, but I do have it everywhere. I've got stuff, and I've got stuff from an era that there's no record of it. Like it doesn't exist. Like like when I came into the game in the late 70s, like 70s, 80s, you didn't have it, like you didn't have video. Like there were so many fights that I was at that even if you type them into YouTube now, they don't exist, and it's a shame because there's a great deal of history that has been lost, especially here in Montreal with the fights that they used to have here, that back in the day, it was commonplace that a few months after you ran out of videotape, you put them through the eraser machine, you know, and you erase them, right? And they
Recorded
did
over.
that
Yeah.
all over the place, like until they started saying, no, we got to keep this stuff. And it almost happened. I don't know if you guys remember in 1972 when the Soviet Union came to Canada to play hockey for the first time against the professionals. It was called the Summit Series. And it was the first time that communist players were coming over as representatives of the Soviet Union to play the NHL professionals. And they played in a series of 4 games in Canada and 4 games in Russia. And later on, I worked for the CBC, and I found out that those 2 almost got thrown into the eraser machine after the series was done, almost got thrown in there too. And somebody said, you know, maybe we should keep those, you know, just someone made, but they were ready to go. They were in the bin, ready to go through the erasing machine. And, you know, a great deal of history would have been erased. So now people keep everything now, but yeah.
And I'm sorry, I was going to go back just for our listeners in case they don't know. Sorry, trying to do the numbers with your 40 years. You were cornering the pros at 18 years old. Is that right?
Okay, let's do the math.
With Vinny Curto, did you help?
Oh, no, 18. That's right, 18. Because my first time I worked a pro corner was October 2nd, 1979. Wow. I was in the corner with Vinny Curto when he fought Marciano Bernardi in an 8-round fight at the Montreal Forum. So, yeah, I'm born in 1961, so that would have made me 18, yeah.
That's so strong. You just don't. That just doesn't. It doesn't happen now, does it?
No, but no, it doesn't. And the other thing, which I've said before, is that because I started at such a young age, I had the privilege of having met the tail end of the last great trainers of boxing. You know, whether it was Angelo Dundee, who was a very good friend of mine, Eddie Futch, Gil Clancy. I mean, I'm losing Roger Larrabee, all these guys. I got to see them and connect with them. Ray Arcel, Freddie Brown, you know, I got to see them and learn from them. I think that I am the last living connect, maybe, of active trainers now that still has a connection to those trainers of the past. So, you know, I got to learn from them and watch them. And whenever someone asks me about my career and, you know, what you said earlier about how did I get involved in boxing, you know, from as early as I can remember, I wanted to be a trainer. And I remember while my friends were admiring the fighters and their heroes were the fighters in the ring, my heroes had a towel over their shoulder and a Q-tip in their mouth, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is, I mean, you also too, I've heard you talk about this and it's so true. Now, you came from a time where you did everything, you know, you did the cuts, you wrapped the hands, and you took, most importantly, you took the people from, you taught them and brought them all the way through. It's not like some massive gym that buys in the champs and like, oh, look at all the belts hanging, but you didn't build them up. You did creating, we covered this when we did cuss. It's like creating someone is very different to just inheriting and out you go and use our name. It's, I mean, hats off, you know, truly.
I think part of that has to do with we didn't have much choice because, you know, it's not like we had a plethora of people to choose from, so you had to make do with the best you could with what you've got right here. Canada's not a big country, doesn't have the boxing population that the UK or the USA has, so we had to make do with that. And it was also a different time. And I can name you 2 people that you're both going to know who, especially one of them, was really a mentor to me and gave me really a start and my belief that I could be a trainer in boxing. And the 2 people are Emmanuel Stewart, who developed guys from the ground up. I had one of the best gyms, amateur stars in the country, you know, and took them on to professional greatness. And the other was John Davenport. And I don't know if you guys remember John Davenport. John Davenport.
He had Lennox in the early days. And everything.
That's right. That's right.
Did you introduce him to Lennox?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I did. And I introduced Canada to John Davenport, you know, because I had met him back in 80, end of 80 or 81. and we had been friends, and I traveled to the States often. He would take me with his team. We'd bring my fighters down and box for their team. He'd have me in the dressing room wrapping the guys and doing stuff. Like, he had me as a coach with him, you know, it was really quite phenomenal. It was something that was really great. I enjoyed doing it. And I might even have a picture of Harold Knight, who worked with Lennox Lewis back in the day, found this picture and sent it to me. Now it's going to take a quick scroll if I find it. I got lucky. So will it turn this way? Or this was better, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
And right behind the white kid, that's John Davenport right back there. So that was me. That would have been early 82, maybe the winter of 82. So, you know, so John Davenport played a great role. And he was another guy who developed his fighters from the ground up. And that's what we did back then. You developed your fighters from the ground up. And then I think, you know, little by little, I think probably after the 84 Olympics, when Lou Duva made a bid for all the American stars back in the day, and Main Events built their entire stable around Meldrick and Evander Holyfield and all those guys, Mark Breland, everybody ended up with the same stable of fighters. And since then, I think that's what created the buy the fighter mentality. You know, okay, we'll wait till the Olympics, boom, then we're going to recruit them and buy them and get them over to us. But back in our day, that didn't happen like that, you know. So you had to create your fighters. And I'm proud to say that, you know, that I took somebody like Otis Grant, who I trained since he was 13 years old, to a world title. I took David Lemieux from 9 years old to just before he won his world title. You know, then Mark Ramsey, I gave him to Mark Ramsey. But that was, you know, to me, I proved that I can take the guys the whole way, you know, and that's a great achievement. There's not a lot of guys I think can make that claim.
No, that's the sort of thing that, you know, when you finally, I don't think someone of your level actually will ever get the recognition that they deserve until they're out of the game, and then people kind of learn the story and learn everything with it. It's always the way, right? But yeah, amazing.
Even down to like even just as sorry, I'm going to sing your praises anyway. But like, as a cut man, Loma, made, like, that cut didn't even seem to be an issue at all. And that needed almost 10 stitches or something, wasn't it, post-fight? Like, that's a fair old cut.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
And they never even mentioned it. Like, they never even mentioned it on the broadcast. And I think if it would have been somebody of a higher notoriety maybe than myself, or, you know, somebody local or somebody that they knew, they would have said, oh, you know, it's a great cut. You know, that's a great job. They don't. It's okay. I only need Loma to say it's okay.
That's what I was about to say.
I need Loma to be happy with me. And, you know, I remember in when Jean Pascal fought Sergey Kovalev the second time around, Freddie Roach had started working with Jean. And the fight was starting to go bad. And I said to Freddie, we got to stop this fight. You can't let him out the next round. And Freddie said, yep. And John came back to the corner and said, I'm stopping it. And John said, no, give me one more round. So Freddie gave him the one more round. And while that was going on, I said, Freddie, this is it. We're stopping it this round. I was a little firmer. And Freddie said, yeah, you're right. And Freddie stopped the fight. He said, no, John, that's it. And he stopped the fight. And Jim Lampley said, Freddie Roach, Hall of Fame trainer, stopped the fight. You know? I thought it was funny. I mean, Freddie did a great job, you know, but it was just, obviously he's the chief second, you know, he stopped the fight. But I was the one who made the call in the corner to say, you know, that's it. That's enough for Jean. So, yeah, but it's okay. You know, like, you're right. Maybe these things will happen later down the road, but I'm still at a point in my career or in my life where I still do it because I love it. You know, and as long as the people that I'm doing it for like having me there, that to me is the most important. Like, when I go somewhere, I want the people to come, and, you know, when I get to when I see Mick Conlon and the crew, you know, and I get, Russie, call me Russie, Russie. When I hear Russie, you know, and I feel good. You know, when I see Usyk and he hugs me, or Loma and his father, that to me is the most important of anything right now.
is Anatoly is he probably, because we were saying yesterday that, you know, he's one of the ones that seems to be really pushing things forward with their system. I think there's a Ross Edgley book about his training thing where he goes and trains with like Soviet guys of the Soviet system, and they train for athleticism regardless of sport, you know, and it seems like Loma and Usek and the Ukrainians are just, they're put through this system that you know, they're geared up for fighting because that's what they're done. But it seems very quickly like they could be just moved at any point because they're just overall athletes that fight, and then they become epic fighters. But like the bits that you see on YouTube, obviously it's what I think what they call sexy training, you know, like the battle ropes, etc. Like what you see behind the scenes, is that even more like what are they doing compared to what we actually do see?
I have, like you guys you made it very clear of how old I am by telling me how long I've been. But in the years, in my 40 years in this game,
Yep.
this was the first time working with Loma that when I saw them, this is what they do, that I was like, I couldn't believe it. Like to me, it became next level. Like this was something I had never seen. I've seen guys work hard. I've seen guys training in the best gyms we have in North America, in the UK. I've seen how guys shadow box, spar, hit the double end bag, hit the speed bag, shadow box, hit the heavy bag, do the mitts. I've seen who does it good, who does it bad, who does it more, who does it less, who skips best. I saw Leonard train. I saw Duran train. This is not even close to what they do. And it's on another level. It's phenomenal, all the things that they encompass. It's incredible the amount of work that they do in a day, in everything from swimming to cross-country skiing on wheels, you know, to bicycling, to work, to weight training, to everything. It tells me that all those years when the USA and Mexico and the UK and the Western world dominated professional boxing, because half the world couldn't turn pro. You know, the whole Soviet system couldn't turn pro.
Yeah.
And now that they've been
right?
turned pro, they're dominating. You know, they're a major force in every division. Okay, not everyone's going to be champion, but in every division there is somebody. You know, there's a Kazakh fighter, there's a Russian, there's a Ukrainian, there's somebody that is a monster, you know. And I think you can use, you know, Beterbiev as an example, Makhmudov as an example, you know, Lomachenko, Usyk, Golovkin, you know, I mean, Gay Nazarov. I mean, there's so many great fighters from what was the former Soviet bloc, and they train at a level that I'm sorry to tell you that we are behind them in the Western world. We're behind.
Have you started to use some of the things that you've seen with the guys that you train elsewhere?
Guys, to be honest with you, my training days are few and far between. The training that I do now is more in the role of an advisor. I'll get invited to go to a training camp and do some fine tuning with a fighter. But to be involved on a day-to-day basis with a fighter that I'm, you know, and train him because of my schedule. Well, I'm saying because of my schedule pre-COVID, of course. There was just no way I could commit to a fighter to say, I'm going to train you when I'm flying over 100,000 miles a year for the last 5 years, you know? So, I mean, I've flown over 1 million miles in my life, and 500,000 of them were in the last 5 years. Whoa. So, you know, it's hard to commit to a fighter and be his trainer and work with him. When I'm committed to working with so many different fighters. And I just think that it's time that my path in life changed and that I touched a little bit on something else in the sport. I like the fact that I've done everything in the sport except referee and judge, and I did that only at the amateur level. So, but I mean, I've made equipment for the greatest names in the game. Nobody can say they've done that, and been a cup man to the greatest fighters in the world, and trained world champions, and. So, and I've done 6 Olympic Games as a broadcaster. I've had 4 fighters go to an Olympic Games. So, I mean, I've done everything there is. So now it's just time to do this one, and it allows me to travel more, see some great places, play in some fantastic pool and snooker halls in the world, and work with, more fighters than I could ever have hoped to work with, and some really nice guys that I really enjoy being around, and that right now is the most important thing, and it's the thing that I have the most fun doing, and I hope I can keep doing that till I'm dead.
That's amazing. Russ, you gave us an hour, and we're 1 hour 31 minutes in, and I personally could hear you.
Overtime, don't worry.
Yeah. I mean, tell Jules to send the invoice. I'm fine. We would absolutely. We would love to have you back if you would accept the rank of cutie with us. We would love to have you back at any moment.
It would be my pleasure, guys. You asked some great boxing questions, and you asked some questions of passion as well. And that's fun. It's fun to talk boxing with guys who love boxing, and to hear the story of another era, and how we evolved to this place. And that's something that I think boxing fails in that we're so centered on the now that we forget how we got to the now. And we should never lose sight of the greats that came before us that allowed you to be here talking about boxing, because great guys paved the way for the fighters that are here today. And when I see young fighters today, not give the respect to the fighters that came before them, they just don't get that they wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be a sport of boxing if it wasn't for those guys. And you're profiting from the road that they laid out for you. Yeah. And I think those people deserve the respect. And, there's not many of us left to still tell that story. I hear people talking about the old days, and they talk about fights in the 90s. I said, what are you talking about? It was last week. I mean,
this is the main purpose of the podcast, right? Because it's so hard to get, digestible history of fighters. And there's, the modern era ones, like you said, amazing. They've all got great stories. But then when you start looking at even, like the Jack Johnson and how influential he was to the sport, not just for black culture, not just for humanity, just the things that he had to do to make it so. There is no follow on without him. He is a turn in the road for boxing. Same with, Jack Dempsey, same with John L. Sullivan, every single one of these like old, I mean, we was going over Slapsy Maxi Rosenblum yesterday, which, you can argue is the reason that you get Floyd Patterson, is that you get Jose Torres, you get Mike Tyson, because of these old school fighters where it does begin. You need to have a little bit of light shone in it. And our whole point of this podcast is to try and get people in on the history side of things. Maybe they're like, this is more interesting than I just thought 2 guys punching themselves. Maybe they watch an event. Maybe they get into it. Maybe they start doing pads in a park. Maybe, they buy a set of Rivals. Who knows? You know what I mean?
Who knows?
Who knows?
I'll give you guys some homework for the next time we do this. And this could be a subject. We talked about the importance, and I've already given you one answer, the importance of fights that had an effect, that was beyond the sport of boxing. There's only a handful of them. So we already said that Ali Fraser was one of them.
Yep.
You guys pick up the next one. You name the next ones that you think are of that importance, and that could be a subject for our next discussion.
Done.
All right?
Russ, thank you so much.
You are a legend.
Ian, I know you're going to get them because you're a student. I can tell. You're going to get them.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just here for the looks.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's just that, listen, It doesn't come off that well on camera, but that's what I'm here for.
You can tell. It's obvious.
Thank you so much, sir.
Guys, thank you for having me.
Absolute legend.
I really appreciate it. And you're sure that Julia said fanny pack and not just fanny?
No. I have it on text saved because I remember thinking that's okay. He must be super into them for it to be mentioned.
I'm into fanny, but not fanny pack. So. Guys, have yourself.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
See you later.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.